Endpoints which need to be added to the Pexip service for registration and calling may have the option of being provisioned automatically using the Activate Endpoint app. The Activate Endpoint app is used with a unique activation URL, which can be obtained via an activation email, or for those who have admin access, from the Pexip Control Center. On clicking on the activation URL, the Activate Endpoint app is launched on the user's machine to assist with configuring the endpoint for use with the Pexip service. The endpoint types which support this activation method are as follows: Cisco endpoints running TC, CE, or Room OS software. Poly HDX and Real Presence Group series. Please note that there are recommended minimum software versions for all the supported endpoint types, which are referenced online at help.pexip.com. All other endpoint types require manual activation and cannot be provisioned using the methods demonstrated in this video. Before provisioning an endpoint, ensure the Activate Endpoint app has been installed on your machine and that the endpoint you are planning to provision has already been created in the Pexip service. This demonstration shows the activation of a Cisco Webex Room Kit endpoint, running Room OS software. However, the process of activation can be applied for all the endpoints which support activation via the Activate Endpoint app. Obtaining the unique activation URL may differ depending on whether you have admin access to your organization in the Pexip Control Center. If you receive an email indicating your video subscription can be activated, open the email, then click the Activate button in the email body. This opens a new tab in your browser, taking you to your unique activation URL where your subscription details are held. Review the details on the page to ensure they are correct, then click on Launch the Endpoint Activation app. To allow the Activate Endpoint app to run, when prompted by the browser, click Open. If you are prompted to enable firewall or network access from Windows Defender, you must allow access to private networks, as the app uses your private network to activate the endpoint. The Activate Endpoint app will open. It displays your subscription details including the display name, video address and plan. Now you are ready to activate the endpoint using the app. The activation process within the app is covered later in this video. If you have admin access to your organization in the Pexip Control Center, also known as PCC, you can launch the Activate Endpoint app for an endpoint directly from within PCC. Go to your Video Systems page, and open the menu for the endpoint. It's located at the end of the row, then select Activate this video system. In the window that appears, click the Launch the App button. To allow the Activate Endpoint app to run, when prompted by the browser, click Open. If you are prompted to enable firewall or network access from Windows Defender, you must allow access to private networks, as the app uses your private network to activate the endpoint. The Activate Endpoint app will open. It displays your subscription details including the display name, video address and plan. Now you are ready to activate the endpoint using the app. Whether the app is launched by clicking on the email link or directly from within PCC, the subscription details including the display name, video address and plan are shown in the app. If they are not shown, close the app and click on the activation link to launch the app again. You may optionally start a network test by clicking on the Start Test button. Note that it is not required but can be a useful indicator. In our example, the test will be skipped. Enter the IP address of the endpoint you want to provision, then click Activate. If your computer's firewall prompts you for permission to allow communications for this application, please allow it. Enter the endpoint username and password. Click Continue. The app works through the activation process. Progress is displayed in the app window. As part of the activation process, the app loads the necessary configuration settings and certificates, if required, to your endpoint, and sets SIP as the preferred calling protocol. The app disables the H.323 protocol, but this can be re-enabled manually through the endpoint's local configuration if needed. Once activation is completed, you see the message, Video System Activated. The endpoint activation can be verified by checking the endpoint status locally, and for those who have access, via the Pexip Control Center. Navigating to the endpoint's admin web interface, you should find that the endpoint is registered to the Pexip service using SIP. The endpoint should also show that it is being provisioned by the Pexip service. In PCC, navigate to your organization, to which the newly activated endpoint belongs, and click on Video Systems. You should find your endpoint in the list. Click into the endpoint and you will find the system status showing the endpoint is registered and provisioned, along with other useful details about the endpoint. The final step is to check that the endpoint can join a call to test that it is working for calling. In our example, we can see that the endpoint is able to join a video call successfully.